Hello, classes. Here we are. This is our third week of being out. Well, second full week. I was reading to you from this book, America, and I have put in assignments in live grades under messaging, which I expect you guys to all be doing. So technically right now we're in world history, and in world history we're on page 417 today. So let's take a look. Absolutism in Europe. Do you know what absolutism is? Have you ever heard the term power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely? Well, absolutism means you have you're very powerful. Let's see how they term it. It says absolutism is a system in which a ruler holds total power. In 17th century Europe, absolutism was tied to the idea of the divine right of kings. So divine right means that God's the one that said that you have the right to be the king. This means that absolute monarchs supposedly received their power from God and were responsible to no one except God. They had the ability to make laws, levy taxes, administer justice, control offices, and determine foreign policy. Now, I would point out to you guys that if you're in a class other than world history, this stuff still applies. This applies to U.S. history, and this applies to geography. It applies to everything, so I expect all of you to be cognizant of this. The reign of Louis XIV has long been regarded as the best example of absolutism in the 17th century. So the 17th century would be what century? I mean, what years? Like the 1600s? Right. French culture, language, and manners reached into all levels of European society. French diplomacy and wars dominated the political affairs of Europe. The court of Louis XIV was imitated throughout Europe. French history for the 50 years before Louis XIV was a period of struggle as governments fought to avoid the breakdown of the state. Louis XIII and Louis XIV were only boys when they came to the throne. The government was left in the hands of royal ministers. In France, two ministers, Carl, I can't say his name, Richelieu, with Louis XIII, and Cardinal Mazarin with Louis XIV, played important roles in preserving the authority of the monarchy. So the kings worked closely with these church officials to verify or justify their rule. Cardinal Richelieu, Louis XIII's chief minister, strengthened the monarchy's power because the Huguenots were seen as a threat to the king. Richelieu took away their political and military rights. He did preserve their religious rights. Richelieu also set up a network of spies to undercover and crush conspiracies by nobles executing the conspirators. So I guess that if you're willing to kill people that are opposing the king, that's one reason that your power would become absolute. One key of Louis's power was his control of the central policy-making machinery of government. The royal court that Louis established at Versailles served three purposes. The royal council was the personal household of the king. Oh, that sounds familiar. In addition, the chief offices of the state were located there. Finally, Versailles was the place powerful subjects came to find favors and offices for themselves. The greatest danger to Louis's rule came from the highest nobles and royal princes. They believed they should play a role in the government. Okay. That sounds familiar too. What does the word, we're going to look at the vocabulary for you guys. You would have it printed out, or you'll have a copy of it in your messaging assignments that I sent. Emerge means to, you know what it means to emerge. If I emerge, I come out. Let's see what they say emerge is. To become manifest, to become known. That's what emerge means. Authority. What do you think authority means? That means I have authority over you. I can make you do your work. That's probably not a good example, but authority, power, person in command. So if I had the power to make you do your work, then I'd have some authority. Absolutism. We already talked about absolutism. It's a system in which a ruler holds total power. I have absolute power. Boyar. B-O-Y-A-R. I don't know what that word means. What does that word mean? It's a Russian noble. Ah. A boyar is a Russian noble. And what's a czar? A Russian for czar. The title used by Russian emperors. So, like, I know that he wasn't Russian, but Julius Caesar was emperor, and then he was going to be czar, and then he got murdered. Let's read about Peter the Great in Russia. A new Russian state emerged in the 15th century under the Principality of Muscovy and its Grand Dukes. In the 16th century, Ivan IV became the first ruler to take the title of Tsar, the Russian word for Caesar, like Julius Caesar. Ivan expanded the territories of Russia eastward. He also crushed the power of the Russian nobility, or boyars. He was known as Ivan the Terrible because of the ruthless deeds, including stabbing his son to death in a heated argument. Jeez. When Ivan's dynasty ended, in 1598, a period of anarchy, the time of troubles, followed. This period ended when the Zemensky Sobar, whatever that is, or National Assembly, chose Michael Romanov as the new Tsar in 1613. So that's about the same time people were settling Jamestown here in America. We've got this wild stuff going on in Russia. The Romanov dynasty lasted until 1917, so it lasted a pretty good length of time. One of its most prominent members was Peter the Great, who became Tsar in 1689. Like other Romanov czars who preceded him, Peter was an absolute monarch who claimed the divine right to rule. After becoming Tsar, Peter visited the West, determined to westernize Russia. He was eager to borrow European technology. Modernization of the army and navy was crucial to make Russia a great power. Peter employed Russians and Europeans as officers. He drafted peasants for 25-year stints of service to build a standing army of 210,000 soldiers. By Peter's death in 1725, Russia was a great military power and an important European state. Peter began to introduce Western customs, practices, and manners into Russia. Okay, well, we're not going to read all that. Okay, that's the end of your section. Absolutism in Europe. And now we will end this video and go on to another assignment in a bit. Thank you.